Welcome, sir, to episode 4, season 2 of Gino's Table. Introduce yourself.
Well, Gino, thank you for having me here. My name is Greg Martinez. I repair people's credit and help them out for a living, get into mortgages, get into vehicles, but primarily mortgages, setting you guys up to be able to make that sale, to be able to make a family's dream come true.
So, in our market, it's got to be one of those things to where, like, anybody you talk to, everybody you talk to probably has that apprehension of like, oh, yeah, I don't really talk about that in my house, or I don't really do that. So do you feel like in your line of business that people right off the bat are kind of like, I know I need your help, but I'm going to wait. Let me fix some things first. It's almost kind of like, let me clean the house a little bit before you come over and clean it.
Of course. It happens all the time. Everybody always asks me on advertising purposes or things like that, whether, what works best for me. And I tell them all the time, it's usually private stores. Reason private stores, nobody likes to put their stuff out there on the internet. Nobody likes everybody to know they have bad credit. There's people that just things they don't talk about openly, which I believe that you should talk about openly. Finances is one of the biggest things.
Especially here where, like, when we go to school, no one talked about it. High school, no one talked about it. College, no one talked about it. And what's sad is, like, you have a lot of colleges where I remember when I used to go here at Texas A&M, and I can picture it. Have you been to A&M before? Like, you've seen how the school's set up? They have is it the Harfin Center? They have, like, the little common area for all the kids, like the food court, right? And I remember walking in there. I remember them had, like, a little table, and they're like, hey, we're signing you up for, if you're looking for financial aid, if you're looking for grants, and da-da-da. I was like, I don't think so. And I can even remember the same thing at Del Mar. I remember going in there, and people would be lined up before the semester started. And I was like, what are they doing? And then finally when I found out, they're like, oh, they're giving grants, they're giving financial aid. I still didn't get it because no one was explaining it. And even when I went through the process of getting the loans, it was like, here, fill this out. Oh, you're approved. It's like free money. And they don't explain these things on top of. There was another table next to him that was giving out credit cards. It's like, hey, you want a Chase card? You want a Visa card? Yes, I do. It's free money. And everyone's like, just go get it, bro. They gave me like $2,000. I'm like, what? You don't even have a job.
Yeah, it's crazy the way that works. Geographically figuring where people live and where they reside in usually determines on those credit card offers right at the beginning when they're 18.
That's crazy.
So they're just going to give people out money who they believe that came from a household that would to be able to get it back. Or, maybe you just in a financial standpoint where it shows that you can pay it back due to your family's upbringing. But financial aid and all that, the way it works, in my eyes, is pretty crazy because you really think about it and you're 18 years old. You don't know what's going to go on. This is literally at the roulette table, red or black. Hey, let's bet on this kid right now.
I might drop out next week.
Yeah, we're dropping it right now. The worst part is that they don't tell you that, that those grants and all that is pretty much the casino here, right? They're going to recover no matter what. So that money's going to stay with you. So we don't do enough educating in children's lives or, the youth's lives to be able to tell us, hey, look, when you borrow money, there's no such thing as free money.
Yeah.
This is not. So we get a ball and chain on our kids as soon as Mijo graduates high school. We send them off and we're like, oh, congratulations, he's going to college.
I remember telling my parents, like, hey, because when I first went to school, I went to Del Mar first. And at Del Mar, I was paying it as like, it was a pay-as-you-go plan because my parents didn't know anything about college. They didn't know anything about financial aids or grants or scholarships, nothing like that. And so as I went, I paid for a course. Hey, Dad, can I borrow a couple $100? Cool, I'm going to pay for the rest. And that kept going on. It wasn't until I got to A&M, a bigger university, where there was more opportunities, more classes. They got more expensive. And then I'm like, hey, Dad, there's this thing. It's called financial aid. Or, hey, there's this thing called student loans. And my dad's like, okay. Never had a conversation with me like, oh, what you're doing is you're taking out loans that later on when you finish school, because that's how they do it. When you finish school, you're going to have a great job. Your job's going to just pay for the whole world. You want to go buy a boat, you want to go buy a house, you want to buy a car, you want to take trips around the world, your job's going to pay for it. And they put in your head like, yeah, it is.
School's the way to go.
School's the way to go. Yeah. I'm going to stay in school as long as I can because, oh, by the way, when you finish school, after so long, that's when you got to pay them. So this loan, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Keep going to school.
They don't ever.
So I went for a long time. But I remember when I bought my first house, it was because of me buying a house that I even finally started to figure out credit. Because when I was 25 or 24, I dropped out of school. So when I dropped out of school, that whole deferred loan, they tell you like, hey, after 6 months of not being in school, that's when it hits. It hit, and I didn't know that. And so I was like, oh, I think I might go back to school. Like I had the intentions to go back to school, but that doesn't matter. That deferred loan started. I wasn't paying it. And so right off the bat, because I didn't know the process, my credit became really, really bad. And on top of a lot of other stuff I don't even have time for right now. But when I talked to the lender, is when they told me like, oh, you got to pay these back. You got to have 6 months of paying this back. I was like, what? They're like, yeah, we can't do anything until you start paying this back for 6 months. So it was kind of grasping what student loans did to my credit is when I really started turning things around and starting understanding how credit affects not only my life, but also getting a home loan, which is, I'm sure, what a lot of people you deal with. Do you feel like a lot of people, whenever they're starting to repair credit, when you look back at their history, does it start with student loans or is it just a simple credit card?
I mean, the thing is it depends on what age they come to me, right? Something on a consumer credit report after the date of last delinquency or after the date of last positive item, you're looking at the total account that it could stay on there for 10 years if it's positive, right? So if they paid something off in 2020, and they ended that payment in 2020, we won't see that off till 2030.
Wow.
So, you got 10 years there on positive, 7 years on delinquency. Most people, they start off with whether it's student loans, whether it's, hey, I got a credit card when I was younger. That's the story always. I got this $300 credit card. And unfortunately, one of the also things around the area is just because we don't teach enough financial literacy. Believe it or not, you'll hear all the times, I had to take out the light bill for my parents. It's a scary, sad subject to talk about, but, I get it all the time. Mm-hmm. My parents needed light. We needed
so it's under their name?
Put it in my name as soon as I was 18. I was still living in the house, but my parents needed light. My parents needed phones. My parents needed this.
Water bill, utilities.
So my parents got all this stuff under my name, when I was younger, and now it's haunting me where I can't even build for my future. It's one of those things that, like I said, it's scary to talk about, but it needs to be talked about,
So while you're on that subject, and I said it would take a long time to talk about it, might as well. We're on a podcast, right? So when I was younger, and at this time I was maybe 20 or 21, my parents had messed up their credit, foreclosure, had a lot of bad stuff on it. Back when you couldn't go online and check it. It was one of those guessing games. Like, I don't know. Like, no one knows. Now you literally have apps everywhere, and you can check it constantly if you want to. So you can literally check it every second. And so back then they didn't have good credit, and then I was at the age to where we were able to show good income, and they started same thing. We're gonna get this under your name, this credit card, American Express, Best Buy, Discount Tire, Macy's, Foley's, Montgomery, like you name it. I had a card for it because I just had really good credit because they were paying on it because I couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. And then it came to a point to where life happens, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're gonna have to stop paying all those cards because this money that we're getting, not getting anymore. Long story short, it just started this like snowball effect on me, and I was naive to it too, even though it was my parents, and I love my mom and dad, and they didn't know any better. And this is why we're saying these things. Like, there's a lot of parents that don't know any better, or their kids don't know any better, and they're like, sure, whatever you say, man. Like, you're my mom. You're like, what am I not gonna? I'll sign whatever you want. Like, I'll put my social security number.
Of course.
I have how many credit cards do I have right now? Well, and then my mom's going through the wallet. Like, I was like, oh damn, why I have all those credit cards? I had no idea. She's like, yeah, we're paying them though. And then it just turned into this big thing where none of them got paid, and my credit score just took a tank.
And I believe it's very crucial because we learn how to spend money first before we learn how to make it. That's one biggest thing ever.
Especially if it's on credit. It's like, this is the same thing going back to, like I said, about school. You don't have to pay this now. This is just a tab we're having here in the back room. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. That's like I said. So whenever you're signing for your parents, it's understandable. However, that drop from a way higher standpoint of it, it's one of the things where that when they started off, if let's just say your parents, my parents, whoever, they were to have fixed their credit and got an amazing interest rate on a vehicle. Mm-hmm. So now they're not getting, screwed over with 18% interest rate or 24% interest rate. I couldn't afford vehicles. If they gave me a 15, 20% interest, I'm out. Not that I can't afford the payment, but I can't afford all that extra money I'm going to have to pay.
And so this is a case where a lot of people have to realize, hey, if I'm going in somewhere, and that's a good point, if I'm going in somewhere and these interest rates are really, really high, yeah, you can get approved, but should you still buy it? There's a difference between can and should you, because a lot of people should not be buying things. No. And they think because, the payment's only this much, it's this many months, or it's this high interest rate, but the payment's only this. It's like, yeah, but what are you actually paying for those things?
Yeah, I hear it all the time. What I could afford now versus what you could afford later. And I tell people all the time, hey, look, congratulations, you got a credit card. And I literally just had a client tell me yesterday. They told me yesterday, said, okay, so if I transfer this balance to another credit card, will that help out? And I said, yes, you can. They're like, well, I'm just trying to get higher credit limits. And I go, okay, for what? And I said, like, to raise my credit score. I go, okay, great. However, if you choose not to pay that X amount of thousands of dollars that you put on that credit card, if you choose not to pay it off quickly and within those terms, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. So what are credit cards used for? Credit cards are used for gaining rewards. Credit cards are used for getting points. Credit cards can be used for, sticky situations, but not an always situation. Because if you go and put down on a credit card, let's just say $10,000, and they're going to hit you with a 24% interest rate, and you hear it all the time. Credit cards have horrible interest rate. Credit cards are the devil. Yes, they are amazingly the devil, but they're a two-edged sword. One side is bad. One side is amazing. How you decide to be able to view everything is on your end. So if you use that to be able to go and buy the Louis Vuitton, or, you're trying to buy your wife purses, or you're buying yourself watches and stuff, that's going to harm you in the long run, especially for, on your end, trying to get a mortgage. When you look back at your closet on some of these people who come to buy houses for you, or you look back at some of the crazy things we bought, do you think it's worth more than what we're going to live in forever? No, never. And that's coming from myself also. I look back and I'm like, man, why do I have that? That's not making me income. So, with changing society and speaking to the youth, speaking to my little boy, he is 8 years old now. And I literally just, still in the works, but for his eighth birthday, which was January 1st, I made him a trailer, like a gaming trailer. So he can rent out. And so he could run the whole business thing. I said, I'm not giving you gifts anymore. I'm going to give you a way to be able to create income. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know how to earn money, then you can't ever spend money,
You shouldn't be spending it, yeah.
Because a lot of people believe that we break this financial train, right? That we do so good because our parents didn't give us enough, right? Everybody feels that way, especially around this area. A lot of people, with the youth, people my age and stuff like that too. They're like, wow, I'm breaking the curse. I'm giving my kids this. I'm giving my kids that. All my kids are dressed this way in a certain way. Amazing, great. I'm proud of you, right? It's nothing wrong with that. However, if we spoil our generation of kids too much, what's going to happen is that curse is going to break again.
There's a quote. So speaking on that, there's a quote where it's like, hard times build strong people. Strong people build weak people. And then there's like exactly what you're saying. Like, in other words, we have kids and they're super, super spoiled. And then because they're spoiled, it creates this hard times. And then those hard times create the stronger people. And it just starts over and over and over again. And it's really hard to not do that, especially if you've worked so hard to get to a certain point. And like you said, you want to give them all these different things, but is it making it hard for them or easier for them later on in life?
Correct. And I believe it's all about, I always bring up this imaginary wall. It's about hitting a wall in life. It's about realizing like what I need and what I don't need. What kind of person you are going to be left with when the money's all gone. What kind of person are you going to be remembered as? So when it comes to credit and stuff like that, and us swiping our cards so fast, I always tell my clients and stuff like that, I always tell them, hey, look, think about what we're going to buy whenever you do get credit. But don't ever forget where you came from with that bad credit, because you can unlock the world. One time we had a client where we refinanced 3 vehicles at the time. These 3 vehicles were $60,000 vehicles, $77,000 truck, and another $40,000 car.
Were these all their cars?
They're
or like
all
they
their
signed
cars.
for other people's?
Theirs, their wives, and their kids. So, man made really great money in the oil field. He was amazing. He provided for his family. Great. But he was paying 20% interest rate, 18% interest rate.
Bro.
We did the math on this, and we saved him like nearly $110,000 worth of interest. And I know there's people out there who's like, well, it doesn't really work that way. However, if you fully pay a loan off in 72 months or whatever is required, that's the way it works.
Especially at that interest rate.
So, maybe it wouldn't have been a whole 110 because he probably would have got tired of something and traded it in. But it would have.
But then it would have added more. Being someone that's done that, you're just rolling in that negative equity. You're rolling it in. And I did that for a long, long time. It wasn't, I would say, in my whole life, and I'm 40, it wasn't until 2020 or 2021 when I finally traded in my last Escalade and I got the new one. And I just kept rolling it. It was always upside down, and I would try to think to get out of it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start fresh, blah, 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 blah. And it was the first time ever, just because the way the market was, where I actually made a little bit of money. I was like, no way, and started fresh again. Then my dumbass is like, I should go buy another one. And it's like you said, you look back at these things that aren't making you money. It's like, why do I have this? Why do I do that?
It's hard to say no to the Escalade.
And I'm not saying that because like, oh look, I'm saying it like people always ask me like, oh nice car, or they say nice car. I'm like, thanks. Do you want the payment? Because I think I'm pretty tired of it. Because I know I'm making that payment and it's not doing anything. Like,
No, it's
I'm
not.
stupid. I'm falling in my old ways of like, oh, I gotta flex, and I don't have to. Like,
Exactly. I honestly feel the same exact way. I've literally brought that up, and I've had like a little epiphany in my head, and I'm like, man, I don't need my Escalade. You know, I'm just gonna go sell it. Like, they already offered me more than what I paid for it. You know, it's a diesel. So on my end, just go sell my Escalade. Like, do I really need all this?
but I think it's hard because I remember growing up like here in Corpus and being out of high school and working at Best Buy and making decent money, and then seeing other dudes doing things right. Like my guys my age or a little bit older that had houses, and especially here in town, like I saw a guy had a house. I didn't know he worked in the oil field. I didn't know what this guy did. But your automatic assumption when you're younger, and it's just a dumb stereotype. It's like, what does he do? What does that guy do? He has a house. He's got a nice car. What is he? What do people assume someone like that does when you're younger? He sells drugs, dude.
Yep. Neighbors think I'm selling dope.
Not that.
Yep. J. Cole said it best.
Not that he's smarter than me, or he learned from someone, or he took advice from some people. Even my cousin Chris. So my cousin Chris was 18, 19 when he bought his first house, and I'm thinking like, nah, this dude, what is he doing? He's not really selling real estate. That's not the way it works.
This is the guy I grew up with. This is not him.
There's no way, man. And he's buying another one. Nah, that's not the way the world works. But the world works in ways that we don't have no idea, especially if you don't surround yourself with other people that are doing things you've never done. You have no idea that, oh, that guy finally paid off a lot of credit, or that guy, oh, he's way in debt. Like he's not doing things the way he's supposed to, but it looks that way.
Correct. Yeah, image is a big thing. You know, and it's a scary thing too in today's world. You know,
well, even now with social media, like it used to be before social media, you had to go and see somebody. So it was like, oh, you would do things to get attention. And now it's like people just constantly, you hear about all these like influencers or like YouTube kids or like Instagram guys, TikTok guys now. They're just like posting all these fake photos and all these fake pictures and all these fake cars and fake clubs.
Down to tattoos now.
Yeah. Wait, they're doing fake tattoos?
Tattoos now. Fake tattoos. Fake tattoos. I saw it on my.
Was that a fake tattoo?
No, this is real. I saw it recently. Jessica Vasquez had posted on there about
fake tattoos.
Fake tattoos. Be aware for scammers out there posting that they can do artwork.
Oh, and it's not
taking
even,
deposit.
So they digitally printed it.
Yes.
Oh, that's a whole.
He said they'll make it look real on an arm and everything. And they're just artists that just will lock you in for a certain date. And
they're those ones where you're like, you wanted this, and then you got this, and it's like his line looking all.
Yeah, I don't even want to know how you show up for that. That's probably one of the worst feelings. But like I say, today's industry, I feel like also just everybody is always kind of keeping up. That's just always the way it is. But if you sit back and you think about it, at the end of the day, like you and I, we sit back and we think like, man, we got to get to work. Mm-hmm. This is all amazing, but we got to get to work. Like I
think it's been like that the last couple of years, and I brought this up to a few people. Like in 2020, when everything shut down, I think people got a good taste of what's going to happen when the world shuts down or my job just goes away. And you had a lot of people that started their own business. They started the side hustles. They started online stuff. So started doing whatever it took to make some extra money, especially when things were shut down. It's like, I'm going to start this business. I'm going to start delivering food. I'm going to start doing all kinds of whatever they could. And so now you have a lot of people I think are wising up a little bit. There is a lot of great information out there. So there's really no more excuses. There's no more like, I didn't know. It's like, no,
find a way or make a way.
You kept scrolling and you didn't want to watch that video where the guy's like, here's how to get a debt. You're like, nah.
Nah, but we watch Maria over here with her Sancho, right, on a novella type of deal, right? We don't know where it went. That's the kind of stuff that, unfortunately that we're into. Like, oh, what's going to happen next on that X episode?
So here's what I want to get into just because we haven't really talked about it yet. And I wanted to explain what you do because a lot of times, like going back to like when people have bad credit, and it seems like it's one of those things. I was recently at a meeting with our lender at Home Source. And Claudia with Home Source, right? And so I told her, I was like, man, here's the problem I have sometimes. It's like I'll talk to someone on the phone. A conversation I had the other day. Guy's ready to go. He's like, man, I'm tired of renting. I'm probably just going to renew my lease, but I really do want to buy a house. I've never gone through the process. I'm like, well, then you need to go talk to these people. And I'll explain to them, look, because they'll tell me my credit's bad. I already know my credit's bad. I'm like, that's okay. Talk to these people. They're going to let you know exactly where you stand in the eyes of a lender, so that way you can start doing the things you need to do exactly the way they need it done, so that way you can get approved. Okay, I'm gonna do it, and then I get them over to the lender, and then it's almost like I'm showing them where the doctor's office is at, and they're sick, and then I get them to the door, and then they don't want to go through that door. And I think a lot of the times because they know they're gonna get a final say on, hey, you thought you were sick, you're really sick.
Correct.
And the same thing with credit. Hey, you thought your credit was bad? Yeah, it's bad, or it's worse than you thought. Is what I think it gets to that point, and that's where people got to see credit different. It's not as something that's gonna disable them. It's not gonna kill them. It's finding out where you stand, and then getting to that next level of like, cool, I listened. I said, hey, let's do it. And that's kind of what you do at your team. Because I feel like with your team, and I'm going to let you take it after this, with your team does things a little differently. Because I think people in the past have heard, oh, yeah, there's certain places they fix your credit. Oh, yeah, I have this place I'm working with. How long do you work with them? 3 years. I'm like, 3 years?
It's a long time.
What are you doing in 3 years with this company that we haven't figured it out yet? And so that's what I think is different about yours. Y'all have a process where I always joke, because you've said it, you're not a credit repair person. You're like a credit hacker. Like, you see it from a different point. How do y'all see it? If I'm got bad credit, I go up to you, how does the process work?
So if you have bad credit and you're coming to me, first of all, we're going to go over everything on the consumer credit report, right? But one of the biggest problems that people really, really stray away from is the fact that building credit. Building credit's huge. You cannot come to me and say, hey, I'm ready to be able to lose weight, but I'm eating out every day and I'm eating pies every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to be able to trim right off the bat. You know, we have to tell you like, hey, Gino, look, you're not building credit at all, man. You don't have credit cards. Oh, and the first thing, nobody will give me credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, you're going to have to bite a bullet right now because you are right. Nobody's going to give you anything. You can't finance this monster can right here in front of me. You know, sad thing is, you know, if you walk out with that, they'd probably call the cops on you. You know, it's just, that's just the way the world works. It is so sad. So what we have to do is we have to eat those, right? We have to eat the bullets. So first of all, starting off, if you don't have any revolving accounts meaning credit cards that are open, paid on time. Unfortunately, I don't like to be able to refer people to secured credit cards that have annual fees, because at the end of the day, that's going to be one of your longest open account when this is all said and done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's $69, $79, but if you, Gino, are at that standpoint where you need to be able to build credit and you need it now and nobody's giving it to you, you're going to have to bite that $79 bullet, $69 bullet. And just think about it that, hey, we can't feed the family Whataburger twice because of the $69 fee. We got to do this fee. And, you know, misconception of credit cards also is we get the credit card and we got to go use it. Don't need to go use it. We don't need to go crazy with it. We just need to be able to keep it there on time. As a matter of fact, if you got a credit card and all you did on it was pretty much spend 10% of it every single month and then you paid it out, you're perfectly fine. They're not reporting, you know, if you go look at credit reports and whenever they pull them, they look at check marks and X's, or they'll see 30 days, right? Yeah. That's what you see. Is the client on time? So when somebody comes to you and they're already late on everything, if somebody comes to me and you're late on everything, I'm looking at you like, hold on, we don't need credit repair. You know, we need something else. Mm-hmm. We need a whole life change. You know, if you're behind on autos, you're behind on credit cards, you're behind on loans, you know, even if you reach out to debt relief, unfortunately, debt relief is going to just steer you, you know, in the way that you can steer yourself. But now you're going to be paying payments on it and you're going to, I'm going to get better. But these accounts are going really, really bad. Unfortunately, I don't like to say this, but it has to be said. You know, if you're already drowning in a credit card and you can't get it back to current, drown out. You need to drown out. Just drown out. Close the account. Mm-hmm. The account needs to close. Because the cool thing about this is that once it's closed, we can go ahead and we can remove that negative item off the consumer credit report. And you can go ahead and you can work out a negotiation. You know, right now in these next coming up months, phones are going to go off like crazy. Debt collectors going to be calling everybody pretty much like, hey,
why is that? Because Christmas?
We know you got your income tax return.
Oh, yeah.
We know you got money to pay this $3,000 card back in the day. And we're going to offer to pay it off at $1,000 for $3,000. So imagine if you would have told yourself right here when you were drowning and you're struggling to make payments on it. You're like, man, you know, I'm struggling. The interest keeps kicking and keeps kicking and keeps kicking and keeps kicking. That's the way it works, right? So the longer you let that hole bleed out on you, it's going to keep bleeding. So if you're listening to this type right now and you're bleeding out, you know, take it out the wound already. Let that account close. Just let it go. We'll get it off later on. You can settle it later on. So instead of you know, having to pick whether you're going to pay your car note or your credit card, pick your car note. Pick your car note because you need transportation, right?
Gotta get to work.
You got to get to work. You know, credit can be fixed, you know, but if you delay it, well, we're never gonna be able to come back from that. Or some people, I'll be like, well, look, man, Capital One's a famous one, right? Their account numbers all start with 517805. 517805. Okay, that's all Capital Ones. Like, you could go to your experience and stuff, and you can see wow, they really do all start that way. So the bad part is when I'll have one client who has an open good Capital One and then two bad ones. And I'm like, man, in order for you to get these two off, that one's probably going to get close. Because when you dispute an account and you have to put an account number in, it's going to be 517805 for all three of them. So the credit bureaus aren't going to pick up which one's open, which one's closed. They're just going to see as a dispute, all of them. So at this point in time, we'll make, judgment decisions whether we take these guys off or whether we leave this one. But, first things first, you need revolving credit cards. You need to have open lines on your credit report, So after that, we need a mix. If you don't have an installment loan, such as any type of loan, whether it's a loan for this table, whether it's a loan for a chair, if you have something that's installment on your credit report, great. Continue to pay it on time. Don't open too many accounts at once if you have already previous installments that are great. But if you're a ghost, which is a zero, which you have nothing on your credit report, it's time to start climbing. It's time to start getting to work. Time to get credit cards open. If you have anybody on your family who has had great credit cards before in the past and that that's a very responsible person, and you look to them and say, hey, can you help me out with this? Can you please add me as an authorized user on one of your credit cards? If it's possible that you have a low balance on it, you've never made a late payment on it, can I get added as an authorized user on your credit card? This right here will jumpstart it. Now, a lot of people will say, the authorized user won't count on the algorithm for the FICO variation, which is correct. But the words and terminology that I'm using is going to be able to be all part of a mad scientist thing, right? I don't believe in just one way fix all. I'm going to listen to everybody's idea and then go from there. So since I play mad scientist with it, Gino, we're going to get added as authorized user. Your score is going to go up, Gino. And after that, when we take off these items, yes, your FICO 8 score may be a 750. You may not be ready to buy a house yet, but what that 750 now allowed for you to do is get new credit cards to come into the mix.
Lower interest
now
rates.
You have 3 credit cards going for you. So I look at them as little hammers, right? There's a big wall in front of us, and on that side is our house, and this side's us, right? So we have 3 credit cards swinging every single time. Boom, boom, boom. We're going to knock down that wall to be able to get that mortgage. And every month we swing once, right? Because they only report one positive payment history a month. So would you rather lend somebody money who has 10 open credit cards with no balances on them that paid every time, every month correctly, or would you rather lend somebody a house with only 1 credit card?
Yeah.
This shows 10 different responsibilities right here. If we're talking in relationship terms, I talk to guys like this all the time. If we're talking in relationship terms, I say, look, can your woman trust you in a room with 10 women? Which one are you going to rather pick? The guy who could be trusted in a room with 10 women or the guy who could be trusted in one? Right? If he doesn't do anything, with 10, he's good. He's good. Lend him it. Let him go wherever he wants. He don't care if there's 10 women in the room because he's got his one woman, right? He's going to take care of her. So that's the way it is with credit cards. You got your 10 credit cards in your wallet. Who cares? Yeah, there's something I like. Yo, I want to go buy it. Nah, you have the funds to go buy it. But I'm going to have to pay it back. I'm financially responsible. And that's one of the barriers that people lose when they get credit. Because when I give them the credit, I give them the key to the city right there.
It's all on you now.
Yeah, it's all on you. If you go and get credit card debt, it's really easy and really fast.
Well, so I'm glad you brought that up because that's a big thing that happens in our industry where, we have our first-time home buyers, and first-time home buyers get all the light. They get all the praise. They get all the attention online. First-time home sellers don't. And what happens between, like you said, when you hand over the keys, literally when we hand over the keys, like, hey, you did everything you need to do. We got you in the house. You're here. What we've had happen quite a bit over the last couple of years, I've been doing this 10 years, right? So it happens quite a bit. Hey, man, the last couple of years have been hard ever since we got in the house, and their credit goes from just takes a nosedive because once they got in the house, they thought everything's good. I don't got to keep those habits that I started and that I was doing to get into the house, all that maintaining and making sure. And a lot of times it's because, and I've been guilty of this, when you move into a house, like you want to deck it out, you want to get furniture, you want to get appliances, you want to get art, you want to get little things that make it feel like home. And then after a while, it's like, should we be doing this time around, which is really crazy. So the house we're in right now, I haven't bought any furniture. I bought like a sofa. It's coming in next month. I'm not even worried about dining table. I'm not worried about a kitchen table. I'm not worried about upstairs.
The
We're doing
process
it piece
is
by
the
piece.
part.
I saw a meme the other day, and this is something I've never told myself, where it said, poor people ask, how much are the payments? Rich people ask, how much does it cost? And it was really like one of those, I used to ask all the time, what are the payments? What are the payments? Because like we talked about earlier, I'm looking at it as that's a future problem. If I can just pay a little bit to get all these things right now, that's what I want. But it shouldn't be that way.
That's the bad part, because people go to this infamous building, right, that's down the street, you know, that sells a lot of home stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they're located all over the place. And this place literally will give you the whole dining room set, the TV on the wall, the washer and dryer, and then your payment's $100.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real now. You just got $7,000 worth of stuff. How long is it going to take you to pay that off? So I get exactly what you're saying, because, you know, I'm guilty of it also. When I hop on something that I intrigue my mind in, that's why I don't intrigue too much, because when I dive in something, I'm diving in. I'm going to want to go deck it out. You know, it's one of those things where it's just habit of nature. So I understand with your first home, it's like, oh, we got to do paint. We got to do this. We got to do this.
I want people to come over. They're going to do everything right.
We stop using our brain for some reason, and we just start taking 10 trips to Home Depot in a day.
Yep.
And then you realize, like, you're not even thinking about it at that time, because you're so full of joy, right? How much fuel and how much time you wasted.
I already got in. I got in the club. They're not going to kick me out. And then that's why I'm talking about first-time home sellers. We have people that are looking to sell their home for the first time. They're like, hey, I want to sell this one, buy another one. It's like, what did you do? Mm-hmm. What did you do the last couple of years while you were living here? And a lot of it's just sometimes life, but sometimes those habits and all those things like I mentioned earlier, they just forgot. Like, oh, man, I forgot. Was I supposed to keep up with that? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were supposed to keep doing that.
Credit is scary. Credit is scary because
I called you the other day, and I made a post about this earlier in the week where this is how easy it is for your credit score to drop, even when you didn't do anything wrong. And in my case, we were moving, and I wanted to bring this up with you just to kind of see what I should do. You in the past, you've helped me. By the way, I'll just disclaim that. Like, you're here because I think you have a lot of great information, and you're here because you've personally helped me and a lot of my clients increase their credit scores, improve our credit scores, fix our credit, and learn things like the way you're teaching. So I got my credit right. It's been right for a few years, and it's been like, cool, I don't have to worry about it. When for a long time, it's an embarrassing thing. And so over the Christmas break, we're moving, and I forgot. And now that I'm looking back, I remember seeing the call, and it's like JP Morgan, Chase, whatever. And I was like, I don't even have a Chase card. Like, there's probably a scam. There's a lot of scams, right? And I answer it. Well, long story short, my credit score dropped 156 points in one day. Because a Chase card that I had that has no balance, I don't owe them any money. There's like, oh, it's that yearly $99 annual fee. It tacked on the payment, or the payment that was the bank that it was taking for payment was closed. I was like, I don't even know what account that comes out of. And they couldn't even tell me when I called them. They're like, oh, sorry, you missed a payment. Because that one missed payment, my credit score, which has been perfect for like years, oh, you got a missed payment. Boom, it got me. I was like, how the hell? Yeah. Like, that's how, and just to show you how fast it can happen for anybody else, 1 payment, 2 payments, 3 payments, 4 payments, 5. It's like, damn.
35% of the FICO algorithm is calculated by payment history. Mm-hmm. So I tell this to people all the time. When you get a recent late payment, just consider as you were looking the other way, and somebody grabbed a big knife and just stabbed you in the back.
That's what it felt like.
Like, let's be real here.
You can even ask Jessica. I even tell her, like, for the 2 days, I'm like, I feel dirty. I just feel like, dang, like, what did I do? But and that sucks, because I'm saying that, and I know how to fix it, and I know how we're going to work on it. But there's a lot of people that they got a lot of knives in their back, and they feel embarrassed to even ask for help.
Yeah, honestly, when we're trying to be able to pull it back like that, you know, a lot of people won't do it. So I could just say it and they won't do it. But if you have late payments, whether they're with, a lot of people around here use Navy Army. It's a bank. Or even if you hear this and you're out there using credit unions, anybody that's a credit union with a late payment, you know, if you had recent late payments or whatever it was, you know, take out a pen, go to your kitchen table and write a letter. And just Google, because if you got kids, I'm sure they got phones, and I'm sure they could pull up Google. And if your kids aren't helping you do this, then, you know, you're kind of in the wrong situation, because once again, you're not talking about financial literacy with them. So have them Google who the CEO of Navy Army is. Okay. Have them Google chairman.
Are you being serious?
I'm being dead serious. Have them Google CEO. Have them Google chairman of the boards, and just write out letters. write out, right? Hello, my name is Gino Montalvo, and you could even do this with your kids, right? This is going to be awesome because I know you'll take this. Have your kids write out, my name is this. My dad's name is Gino Montalvo. He has a credit card with your company since this date right here. The date of the credit card open and this. And then you can put his card number is, or his account number, because it's not a card. You just put his account number is, like, let's say it was Capital One, 517805. His account number is this. We were moving into a house that we had recently bought, and we had a lot of things going on with our mail during the holidays, and we simply forgot. We are very sorry for not paying this annual fee that is on the credit card, and we would have sent you the money sooner.
Y'all do that? Or you have clients do that?
Yeah.
To everybody?
I try to tell people, but it's just so much information, where at the end of the day, why am I going to go tell 100 people that if I only know 2 people are going to do it? So to me, I have all this stuff.
So what's the response
that I never put out?
What's the response you've gotten back from stuff like that?
The cool thing is I've done it to Navy Army before, and we've gotten cardstock letter, like cardstock, right? Real thick letter saying, we appreciate you so much for reaching out to us.
Let's see what we can do.
I mean, I want to say it, but then I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I should, but it is what it is. They have openly, helped out that client, and they've taken off the late payment.
Well, you know why? Because, and this is the thing that I've told people in the past, like, you have to talk to the lenders, you have to talk to the banks, because one, as much as it is a machine and it is a system and it's a game, I tell people, there's still people behind it that work at these places. And they know these secrets the way you know these secrets.
Yeah. And we're not supposed to forgive late payments. That's the thing.
And there's times where you've talked to these, if you talk to a real person, and they're local especially, they'll help you out. Like, look, here's what you need to do. And they'll tell you, and they'll be very open about it. But if you call in rude, if you call in mad, if you call in angry, and it's not going to help your situation.
There's so many people out there who just believe that it's like just shut door, shut door, shut door. And I always tell them all the time, I go, it's fine. But remember, in sales, when you look at those people who are at the top, remember, they failed more times than they succeeded. Albert Einstein failed more times than he's ever succeeded. Thomas Edison failed more times than ever see it, but now we have light, right?
That's why I'm really open with, my credit situation in the past. And I've made posts about it when I first bought my first house. Like I just mentioned a while ago, my payments were deferred. I was late on my student loans. I was late on these credit cards, late on these different things, because I need people to understand that I've been there and I know what it feels like. And I know what it feels like to not even want to talk to the lender, because the lender's going to tell you some shit that you don't want to hear. And you're going to be like, oh, man. And the same thing with you. Like, hey, I'm going to give you this information, man, but don't judge me. And I guess people don't realize, like, I'm not judging anybody. Like, no one's judging you. There's nobody that's going to judge you, because if you have someone that's truly trying to help you, they're going to look at you like a doctor would look at you and go, you're sick, I'm going to fix you.
Correct.
I've seen it before. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that these situations that people have, everyone's going through the same thing. So I was going to ask you next, do you see a similarity? Is there any similar things between your clients where you're like, oh man, everyone's got this same problem. Everyone's got this one problem. Like even maybe it's a certain account or a certain just kind of pattern you see.
Everyone has the problem of not understanding how credit works.
Sure.
Everybody. They don't know how a credit card works. Yeah. That's across the board. 9 times out of 10, they don't know how a credit card works. And even when they've got good credit, they still don't understand. And it's very difficult to explain, because a credit card is used, like I said, once again, to be able to gain rewards, to be able to gain points. A lot of people are like, oh, Greg, I can't wait till I get my credit fixed so I get that American Express Platinum. Mm-hmm. And on my end, I'm like, look, American Express Platinum's great, but it comes with a hefty annual fee. Mm-hmm. If you don't do the things in your life that allow that annual fee to become free to you, that card's not for you. That card is literally a charge card. It has to be paid off every billing period. Mm-hmm. So that card is, it's cool and all, but it's not a great card for you to just have in your wallet because I have it. You better utilize your stuff. So a lot of people, once again, they don't know how to start building credit. Or you get, we're a day and age of Facebook all the time, right? So you'll get those random posts that pop up and say, I got this credit card, and this credit card helped me build 150 points, 120 points. Let's cross all that out right now. Whether you, Gino, get American Express, whether you get Chase, whether you get Capital One, whether you get Credit One, whether you get the first bank of Gino Montalvo, it does not matter what your credit card says on there. As long as it is a credit card, that's what the credit reporting agencies look at. That's what the FICO algorithm is calculating. It's not calculating that the fact that you have Chase name versus any other bank. So when people push on, no, you got to go to this card because this card helped me 120. No, that card did not help you 120 points. Having a credit card in general helped you out. And the reason that it moved your FICO score so much, because your FICO score was pretty much a go score. So when you have nothing in the tank and you put something in the tank, if we have a clear tank right here and we pour green inside of it, the tank's going to be green, right? Am I right? So if we go ahead and we have, all this red dye inside the tank and we pour the green, right, the good stuff, do you think that's going to be able to show green enough? No. That's what happens with people's credit score. So they'll say, well, I did that and my score only went up 10 points because you had a lot of red in there. The reason this guy's worked is because he had nothing in the tank. So both stories are accurate. Both stories are accurate, but in order for us to be able to be good, what I come in and do is I take that red out of the tank. I tell people all the time, look, we try to aim to be perfect. We don't want them to see any late payments or anything you've done wrong in the past. So we try to be able to get all these stuff removed off the consumer credit reports. However, you have to keep pouring the green stuff. I can't pour the green stuff for you, and I can't pour it for my clients. So on my end, this is the part where everybody needs. Even if you're waiting in line and you're like, man, look, I'm going to go to Greg and Gino one day. One day I'm going to get a house. Well, that one day starts right here. That one day starts with building credit. If you don't have credit being built.
I would say that one day starts with just asking for help, especially like I said, we live in a town and a society where people don't want to ask for the help. They're embarrassed to even start. They'd rather just keep living life, not knowing.
Yeah,
and just
And it's one of those things too where
it'll fix itself. Have you ever had that people? I've had this a lot where they'll tell me, hey, I bad credit. I'm like, cool. Are you working on it? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, I'm working on it. And I don't even know what their definition of working on it means. Like, what do you mean working on it? Like,
I got somebody working on it. I got someone helping me.
Oh, I'm working on it. Like, are you just making your payments? Did you check your Credit Karma last month? Like, what did you do? What are you doing to actively work on it?
Yeah.
And it starts with doing the things you're saying.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too, which is just brings me to another example, right? I see it all the time on Facebook that people will chime in. You can do it yourself, dude. Yes, you can do it all yourself. Look, if Gino and I wanted to go on there and give ourselves tattoos, we can do it. I'm sure we get in trouble for it, but should we? I can go and do surgery on myself. We can do anything ourselves. We do anything. So yes, you are right, but that whole you can do it yourself attitude for credit. Should you do it yourself?
But it goes back to what you said a second ago. That person that did it themselves, what was their situation that they were able to fix really easily when compared to this person might have a whole shitload of mess.
A whole closet full of stuff, right? So on situations like that, like I always tell people, and I'll tell people too, I was like, hey, look, bro, you don't need me, bro. Look, I'm gonna give you my consultation, and we're gonna literally shoot things back and forth, and I'm gonna tell you exactly what you need to do. Whenever you do exactly what you need to do, you will be successful. Talk to me in 6 months after you've done this, and I'll turn clients away left and right. There's no client who's I'm gonna get on the hook and I need you to be my client. You and me right here talking, I don't need any more clients. I would love clients, but I don't need to poke anybody's eyes. I don't need to go and say, hey, you need to fix your stuff.
Well, so that's why
you don't need it.
That's why I try to warn people about certain companies in town or nationally where they want you to be that person that goes to the gym, pays $10 but doesn't really go. It's like, I'm going to keep you on the hook for like 3 years and I'm not going to really do much. And people are okay with it because the monthly cost is lower. And I think that's where they get stuck too.
And there's so much information that floats around, that's crazy because when you think about it, right? Like, I laugh so hard because they'll be like, oh, well, it's a credit expert or credit professional. Never once have I ever called myself a credit expert, a credit professional, but I've gotten thousands of people inside mortgages all across the United States. Let's be real. Like, I've got clients all over the place, but I never ever took in that term because I don't believe a term such exists. Because some people say, oh, don't open that credit card because it's going to hurt your credit for 12 months. Bullshit. Show me in black and white where it says that. That's not the way it works. You don't know what's on their credit report. You don't know their average age of accounts. You don't know what balances they owe on stuff. We'll get technical right here because that don't open a card because it's going to hurt. That doesn't exist. Now, if we're speaking facts into the FICO algorithm, and these are research facts too, right? Nobody actually knows the way that the algorithm actually calculated, right? Only FICO company has that algorithm. So nobody has it down to the T. They have an idea. They have really great ideas. There's companies out there like Experian.com who can show you all 3 FICO 8 scores. Those are great. But mortgages, that's a whole different FICO algorithm. And I try to tell people all the time, I've had somebody tell me before, oh, well, you're telling a client that they have this. I said, look, I don't tell a client anything. Look, on my end, I tell them, hey, look, your Experian FICO 8 is this. I don't pull credit scores, I don't look at FICO algorithms like that. I don't tell people, hey, Credit Karma's right, Credit Karma's wrong. That is a great conversation I like to have, though, about Credit Karma. But, we just give them what the screen says, what FICO 8 says. Because if we do a hard pull on your credit report, a hard pull will hurt your score.
So I was going to ask you that. So that's the thing that we have a lot of people that get stopped up whenever they talk to a lender. And like I said, I'll show them the door. They get to the door, and then when they're like, "Are you going to pull my credit?" They're like, "Yeah, we might have to pull your credit or do a soft pull or a hard pull." And that's where they kind of pull out because maybe they've got this idea in their head. I don't know if it's just a dirty rumor or how it is, but I think there's so many people that they stop themselves from getting help because they heard something one time where, oh, if I do that, my score's just going to tank because I asked to get a hard pull or talk to the lender, not realizing that, hey, you have to get to that point. Because if you're not, you're just going in blind. You're just going to continue to go on blind. You're never going to know, in the eyes of the lender, in the eyes of the car dealership, in the eyes of whoever, what they're looking for.
Correct. Because you're never going to have somebody who's that cool with you to be able to just say, let me see what you have, right? I know it sounds crazy, but if it was, obviously we pull so that what we could have in our system, and we pull to be able to have in car dealerships like, hey, let me see what I can do. So let's do a hard pull. I don't believe that you should hard pull. That's my personal opinion on it. The reason I don't believe that is because there's ways that we can see a full credit report. Now these ways are going to cost the consumer, probably $50 if you're using my FICO, but you can see the whole credit reports. So if you can see somebody's credit report and you can go through it without a score populating, it's not a hard pull. And you can see what's negative, what's positive, and now you're more or less like, oh yeah, we could do something here. Now let's hard pull. But if you're going to hard pull somebody who literally is 90 days behind on things, you're wasting a hard pull. You're now I understand why these people are backing out, because they needed to be at the table where, hey, are you current on everything? How's everything look? I know you have bad credit, but are you current on everything? And if that answer is no, then we need to be able to talk on outs. That we don't even have to hard pull. We don't even have to stick another knife in your back. That's why it's that big rumor around it is, no, I don't want to pull my credit. I don't want to pull my credit. I don't want to pull my credit. But because, some of these people have 50 inquiries, 40 inquiries, 60.
What are these inquiries? Are they just applying for credit cards or applying for the department stores?
They have gone to dealerships, right? This is one of the biggest ones.
And someone told them no, so they went somewhere else?
Someone told them no, and they went somewhere else. And what happens is once you sign on that paper to give your information to the dealership, they are allowed to literally toss your information up, shoot it with a shotgun.
So multiple people are trying.
And we call it shotgunning. In the auto industry, they call it shotgunning. You just shoot their application out to 8 different banks. So
they're all 8 pulling?
And they're all 8 pulling.
Dang.
All 8 hard pulls. So you go to 5 different dealerships.
I never thought about it like that.
5 different dealerships, 8 pulls.
That's 40.
And then some people, unfortunately, obviously, no one would ever physically admit this, but I know the way it all works is some people are assholes. They're like, you know what? Man, that Gino guy, he didn't buy from us after all. He signed that credit paper, though, right? And he didn't like our car? All right. Send it to 10 banks. Dang. If he ain't gonna buy a car here with us, he ain't gonna buy a car with anybody. Watch.
Ooh.
Thankfully, you're allotted all those inquiries.
They can be within a couple of days, right?
If they're in a couple of days, they're allotted in the FICO algorithm. Supposedly they're allotted in the FICO algorithm is to not count that heavily against you. But a lot of people are just scared because they're afraid that that's another knife in my back. There's another knife in my back. So you have to get those people where hey, look, it is what it is. We're gonna have to be able to look at credit, but if you tell me right now, hey, Greg, it's not worth looking at my credit, or hey, Gino, my credit is not there yet, then okay, great. Let's print out your credit reports. And even if it starts with the simple of them printing out a credit report or looking at their credit report and them circling the negative accounts, boom, 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 boom. Okay, this is how many negative accounts I have.
For a lot of people, I'm glad you brought that up. For a lot of people, and myself included, there was a time where I didn't want to look at that because I would have to admit, yeah, I didn't pay that one back. I didn't pay that one back. It was kind of like, it's not there. Like, I'll just, because I remember when I was younger, it was always like, well, after so many years, it drops off. I'm like, cool. I'll check it in 4 years. I'll look in 4 years to see if it dropped off.
A lot of people do that. And a lot of people do these things where, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff in the industry. A lot of people will literally sign for a house that day and then sign on a vehicle that same day.
Oh, yeah.
And, obviously, but then some people do that, and then they'll stop paying on other things. And I was like, you just went right back down. Like, it doesn't matter. Or some people have that thing where, you know what, I know I can't afford that at that time, but, that I can't afford that at that time, unfortunately, they stop thinking about it. So if you let $10,000 credit card go and another $5,000 credit card go, right, and now you're back to living the Gino Montalvo life, but you left these two over here, you forgot that the statute of limitations is 4 years that they could come back and try to sue you. So since you're not making these payments here, right, you should, a responsible person should do, is say, hey, I'm going to put $100 away in a savings every month, just in case this 10 grand person calls me. Just in case this 5 grand person called me, I have money in savings because I did lend that money. So that goes back to the whole thing, how credit works also, is that if I give you credit on liquid debts and you run through your case of liquid debts, right? Chances are you still owe me money and you don't have any more liquid debt. So when we take out stuff like, let's say Best Buy has credit cards, right? So if you're taking out stuff at Best Buy and it's 24 months, no interest, okay, go ahead and calculate in the calendar 22, right? 22 months. Don't do 24. Calculate 22 months in your head. If it costs $2,000, we're going to divide that by 22. If you can make that payment every month for those 22 payments, buy it. But if you're going to make minimum, don't buy it. It's going to cost you 3 times more.
Well, yeah, you got to take it.
That's the way that these credit cards should work. But people just swipe, $39.
I'll pay it, yeah.
Man, I've literally put thousands of dollars on a card before, right? And, I saw like the minimum there and I said, oh, these guys are crazy. Like they let me spend that much money and they only want me to pay back $60, $69.
Well, because they're hoping you only pay the minimum because they're going to start charging on that interest.
Correct.
And the interest is going to be crazy. So, yeah, you want to pay it off in the terms that they gave you or the promotional terms.
So people have that understanding in life that, oh, yeah, I'm just paying minimum. I'm paying on my cards. Well, in reality, you have to move some puzzles of the pieces around because you're going to forever play catch up. If we're forever playing catch up, then we're not going to get to that mortgage.
Here's where people get in trouble. And I've done this in the past. You got that minimum payment here. It's only this much to get all this stuff. Cool. And then I go over here. It's only this minimum payment to get all this stuff. And I got all this stuff, and I got all this stuff. And then I can go over here and pay minimum and get, oh, my God, I'm just like, I'm loading up. I'll worry about it later, paying that minimum payment. But then it finally gets to a point where you go to somewhere and you apply for credit. They're like, yeah, no, we saw all these things. But no, my minimum payment's only this. But yeah, but you have like $100 grand in debt that you signed up for. And like you said, it's going to catch up to you.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to pay all that off first and then come back.
Yeah, it just doesn't work that way. And then even then, okay, so back to the printing out the report, right? You see 5 collections, and then we see 5 collections on there. And those 5 collections total up to about $3 grand. So let's just say now you're doing well in life. And now you feel, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go pay that $3 grand off. This is gonna help my credit score out.
So that was gonna be something I wanted to ask you. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's wrong right there. Paying $3 grand for closed collection accounts to be able to help your score, that's not going to get it.
I've told people that before too, because
I've had people cry to me saying, like, Greg, I just paid $7 grand to be able to get these accounts closed.
Went and ran.
And I'm just like, oh damn, like, can I be honest with you? And they're like, yeah, Greg, what's up? I say, you just lost $7 grand.
And that's why it's really important. I've told people this, going back to, hey, talk to the lender first, talk to someone that knows, because a lot of people have in their head, like you said, oh, I have these accounts. I know I need to pay these off. I'm just going to pay these off, and then my credit will be good, and then I can go over here. It's like, one, it might not work that way. It might not make your credit score go up. And 2, you're going to spend all that money that's going to be for your down payment, your closing costs, all the things you need to get into your house. Let's find out first what that's doing to your credit score, and if you need to. Because if you don't need to, if it's just a moral thing for you, you're like, well, I needed to pay it back. It's like, yeah, but is it going to help your situation?
But let's get into the house. Yeah. And the crazy thing about me is that I run no FICO algorithm stimulators. So all this knowledge of what I've done is all stuff of me playing mad scientist. You have people who can literally start tomorrow and they can go work for a loan company and they could plug it in their computer. And I have personally made this stimulator wrong before. I proved it wrong before. I mean, I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I have saying that, hey, look, these collections that we're paying right now, they're not necessarily the only thing. Now, it's just variation so big, that, if a client does have, all these positive accounts and they have a couple of collections and all their credit cards are paid down and, there's no way that the score could physically move anymore, then unfortunately, in order to close that house, you have to get rid of that collection. It's understandable to pay a collection at that point in time, right? But you always want to work a PFD, pay for delete. At that point in time, you call the company, yo, hey, I would like to be able to pay off this account that's on my credit report. And I tell clients all the time, I tell them, hey, look, I don't know why this account's on my credit. Tell them, I don't know why this account's on my credit report, but it's on here, and I don't like that it's on here. How much I got to pay to take it off my credit report? Like, I don't know who y'all are, and I don't know why it's there, but it's on my report, and I'm willing to pay to get it off. So they never admit
Would people
to
be
that.
surprised of what they can actually
They'll be
negotiate?
surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you just actually call and say, hey, look, I know it's this much, but I can only afford this much.
At the end of the day, it turns
They're just
into
looking for anything, right?
It turns into a whole nother loophole of another hour podcast if we were to go that hardcore. But in reality, you know, these debt collection companies, they don't ever have the rights to be able to collect. You know, there's this thing called dunning notices that nobody ever fully receives, right? This is a big
How'd you say? Dunning?
A dunning, D-U-N-N-I-N-G. So a dunning notice is supposed to be given. So therefore, it sounds silly, but I'm gonna certify mail you and say, hey, Gino, you owe me $100.
Okay.
Is it okay that I collect this $100 from you? And is it okay that I possess your personal information? And it's okay that exactly. If somebody breaks into your house, you're not gonna first say, hey man, who are you doing in my kitchen? You know, you're gonna freak out. So our house is our credit report. Our house, aka our credit report. When you see somebody in your house, are you just gonna be like, oh, let me pay you to get out?
Because, okay, so I have to ask
that makes
you
you think
this
even
one
more.
last thing on what you're talking about. Then we're going to start wrapping up, bro.
Yeah.
Even though I love talking to you. So let's just say someone owed on a credit card, but then that credit card, whatever that debt was, let's just say it's Best Buy, right? So I had a Best Buy card. I stopped paying on it. And then
Citibank, North America.
Best Buy sells that debt. So there's another person over here who buys that debt.
Portfolio recovery.
And that person keeps calling, right? So when that person's calling, that's not really Best Buy calling. That's the debt service. So is paying those people, sounds like what you're talking about a second ago, is paying those people, it's not really paying Best Buy back. Best Buy already got paid, right?
Correct. Best Buy already wrote it off.
So then what should I do with those people? Should I offer in compromise? Should I just tell them to F off?
That is a great question. That is a great one. For one, I would immediately let them know, hey, my consumer, right? Never ever admit your name over a phone. When you answer a phone, you know, unfortunately you're in the line, but when you answer a call, you know, this goes for everybody. You should never ever answer a call like, hey, this is Gino Montalvo.
I do that every call.
Because if this was a debt collector calling you and they're like, is this Gino? Obviously you got your finances in line, right? But this is for people who are scared to answer phones. You know, because a lot of clients, when I call them, they're very afraid when I call. Believe it or not. Like my office at one point had to get away because they would say hello or hey, and I'd be like, hey guys, you can't wait for them to talk. They're like, why? And I go, because they have bad credit right now, and we're gonna help them out in their situation.
They're thinking it's somebody else.
They got 10 other people calling them right now, bro. Like, you can't call them and say, hey, and then wait for them. Like, or they would call and say, hello, is this Gino? Mm-hmm. And you already know. If you would pick up a phone, they're like, hello, is this Gino?
Then you hear the little click.
Oh, yeah.
Damn, they got me.
They got you, right?
Just to let you know, this call was recorded online.
There you go. So my office had a big problem with that. So
speaking of your office, like, and I have to cut you off right
you're
here,
good.
but this is the whole point of this, is to get more information out here. One more time, who you are, and if people have heard this podcast and have heard this episode and heard some of these clips, they're like, psh, that's the guy I got to talk to. How do we get a hold of you and your people?
Well, you can look me up on Facebook, Greg Martinez on Facebook. That's the fastest way to be able to. I feel like you shoot me a message in there. I literally send it off to my office, and my office responds right away. You also have a great link for us, you know, that works. That we literally reach out right
Fix
away.
Your Credit.
Yes, sir. That literally works amazing. My office will literally send you an email, and we'll stay on top of it, and we'll be able to get exactly what we need to be able to get from you. So we have to be able to set you up with the consult. A lot of people with the consults, you will learn more in your consults than anybody else out there.
And specialized to you. Like what we covered today was very broad.
Correct. Because I'm going to tailor. I'm going to come in and I'm going to make sure everything fit right with your credit report.
That's what you got to do. Consultation first, and let's figure out where to go.
Figure out the problem.
Bro, we had a conversation a while back, and that's why I knew it'd be good. You came in one time and you explained stuff to me even more than we did today, where I still use some of the tips and some of the explanations that you gave to me to clients, just because it is one of those subjects not a lot of people talk about. I appreciate you coming in. This is Gino's Table. This is Greg Martinez. He brings a lot and help you buy more tables. And so if I could, grab a Sharpie. We're going to have all your stuff and information up there to where people can look you up. Sign anywhere you can. I appreciate you coming in, man. This is just one of those. People have to hear more and more of this over and over.
Yes, sir.
Play this episode again.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, bro.